Then you will, sir.
It's been a while, Mr. Murdoch.
Hey, welcome back to the stash. What would we do without Ultimate Spider-Man? Because seriously, I could not imagine if the only ongoing solo Spider-Man comic was ASM. If it was, the only reasonable outcome would be for all Spider-Man fans across the globe to become the lunatics from Arkham Asylum. Now, my last video on USM had me actually find some parts of concern, specifically with the pace scene and what was actually being accomplished within the book. The big question is, has anything changed? Well, in this episode we'll go over that and much more. So join us today as we go over Ultimate Spider-Man issue 9. But before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly let you all know that here at the Stash, we are trying to reach 4,000 subscribers before the end of the month. I know it's a huge ask, but with your help, I know we can do it. So if you're new around here and you like Spidey or just comic content in general, feel free to stick around and maybe hit that subscribe button. But anyway, with all that being said, let's get straight back into the video. So in case you've missed the previous uploads, like if there is a playlist, I'll go over a quick recap. 20 years ago, the Maker prevented a radioactive spider from biting a young Peter Parker. He likewise prevented the creation of any other superheroes and formed a secret council to rule the world from the shadows. 8 months ago, Tony Stark sent Peter Parker that same radioactive spider along with a picotech suit and warnings of the Maker's Council, a shadow organization that rules the world. Since then, Peter has used his incredible powers granted by the spider's bite to fight crime alongside Green Goblin, aka Harry Osborn, the co-CEO of OSCORP. But when Stark reappeared, Peter and Harry learned that he could seize control of their suits. Meanwhile, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin of Manhattan, gathered their heads of every borough of New York City to declare an open season on the pair of masked vigilantes. Our story begins with Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson at a high-end bar sourly celebrating their newfound success over the paper absolutely killing it lately, with the company pulling in many new subscribers and readers each day. Mary Jane walks in and questions why they seem so down and what should be a happy moment. Then she asks if something came up that she wasn't aware of, but Ben and Jonah say that she pretty much covered everything, which leaves her even more confused, considering it was good news. Jameson explains that it's their first month of the paper being up and running, and 8 of their top 10 stories are about Spider-Man, and that's because they only have 8 Spider-Man stories. MJ still doesn't understand the issue because people love those stories, and Peter has snapped some great photos as well. Ben continues to explain. He says that their intention, the entire point of the paper, was to make stories that no one would cover, stories that people are afraid to talk about. Instead, they've been making stuff around a topic they deem unserious. It's just sensational. Mary Jane would prefer to call it amazing, but she continues by telling them they're missing the big picture. They have one of the fastest growing online presence that no one's seen in a very long time. They're growing like crazy every single day with new subscribers and readers, and the projections are just somehow even more impressive. Because of this, within the next 6 months, Ben and Jonah are going to be even more popular than the Daily Bugle. MJ points out that these numbers, all these new readers and subscribers, mean that they can write whatever they want and people will see it. Ben and Jonah finally open up their eyes and the 3 of them get back to work. Meanwhile, Peter and Harry arrive at OSCORP after a long day of patrolling the streets of New York City. Harry asks what Otto called them in for, and it turns out that Octavius has finally cracked the code, so to speak, for Pete and Harry's freedom. Freedom from Stain and freedom from Stark. A major issue they had with their tech and suits was the constant tracking they had over them. In Harry's case, his suit was pretty simple for some with the mind of Otto Octavius. It was a standard firmware update and that was all that it really needed. But for Peter though, considering his suit is so perplexing even to the geniuses of the Marvel world, let's just say Otto had to really think outside the box for this one. Before he unveils his masterpiece, Peter asks for a second and begins to converse with his suit's AI of himself about how they feel about this entire situation. The suit has a hunch that someone like Otto would try to contain it, and of course, with one simple question, Octavius not only confirms that he would do so, but also says he'll experiment with it a bit, which leaves the suit very scared. After going back and forth a bit more, Peter and the suit agree that he'll take the upgrade. However, Pete would leave the suit at home until things get sorted. The worst case scenario being that he'd have the best home defense system you could possibly own. Peter's finally ready to see his new costume. Otto excitedly removes the tarp and presents his very own Spider Armor Mark I. It's got everything from improved web shooters to rocket launchers, concussion bombs, stun webs, a cutting laser, majority of the old suit's features, and even more. After Otto finishes listing how incredible the suit is, he asks what Peter thinks. Silence fills the room until Peter replies with, "I think I'm good." Much to Octavius' surprise and disappointment, Spider-Man doesn't want the new suit. Harry jumps in to smooth things over and explains that what Peter really means is that he thanks and appreciates Otto for everything he's done, but maybe it's just a tad too much for him. Spider-Man is meant to be lithe, agile. This helps Octavius understand, and he even mentions it might be a little over-design as well. Luckily for Peter though, Otto still has one simple solution up his sleeve. We then take a short break to check back in on the paper. Long story short, Ben and Jonah are basically preparing to start a big investigation on Stain and Stark. Later during the evening, Peter and Harry are talking on a rooftop outside about Pete's new suit. It turns out the solution to all Spider-Man's problems was spandex, good old trusty reliable. Peter frets about if he shrinks the costume when he washes it because MJ would never let him hear the end of it. Harry then brings up an invitation for Peter and MJ. He asks if they would like to join him and Gwen on their vacation in December because they always go to this place they own in the Hamptons for the holidays, but it would be nice to have some friends come along for once. Peter reluctantly reminds Harry that it would be during Christmas, as well as the fact that he's got 2 kids, extended family, and a whole tradition for the time. So instead, Pete invites Harry to join them on their Christmas party. Harry says he'll check in with Gwen, however she'll most likely decline. But then Spider-Man's spider sense begins to run wild. Within a flash, a laser shoots towards the 2 heroes. Spidey dodges the attack, but less could be said for the Green Goblin. And now because of the blast, his suit is rendered useless for the time being. The aggressor makes himself known. It was the Black Cat. Spidey warns him Harry better be okay, but Hardy assures him to worry about himself, for they are both in the same boat after all. As the 2 talk, Harry attempts to speak to his AI father, yet he's met with no response. Then suddenly the Black Cat whips Spider-Man as he formally introduces himself, and the 2 begin their fight. Spidey leaps into the air, dodging his whip with every move. The Black Cat seemingly missed Spider-Man, however it was all a part of his plan. Using his weapon, he pulls down the water tower, causing it to land on top of Spidey. Using this chance to his advantage, he begins to strangle Spidey with his whip as he tells him that he and the Green Goblin are both the prize and the prey, for they must pay the price for capturing their attention, for the trouble and annoyance they cause, and their lives are forfeit. Meanwhile, Harry forces his suit to reboot to try to save Spidey in the nick of time. However, using his uncanny spider strength and agility, Peter manages to counter the Black Cat, throwing him off and webbing him to the ground, leaving even a veteran like Hardy completely shocked by what he's just witnessed happen to him. The Black Cat tells Spider-Man to get it over with, to kill him, but Pete tells him not to be ridiculous and he goes to check up on Harry. But as he does that, Hardy activates a laser sword to cut through the webbing and he slowly gets closer to Spidey. But then, Harry's suit's finished rebooting, and then all of a sudden the helmet is filled with the voice of his late father telling him to not think and just act. And so to please Norman, he pushes aside Spider-Man and blasts the Black Cat completely off the rooftop, leaving him to plummet towards the ground. Minutes later, an ambulance arrives to remove Hardy's barely alive body from the scene. Peter turns to Harry and confronts him over the stunt he pulled. Harry assures him he did what he had to do, for Hardy was certainly going to kill Peter. Yet oddly enough, Pete mentions that his spider sense hadn't gone off to warn him. Harry doesn't care though. He explains that the Black Cat would have ended his life and not thought twice about it. I mean, he literally said that him, Fisk, and whoever else are making a game out of hunting them. He continues and tells Peter to wake up and realize the type of people they're really dealing with here. He then reminds him that his parents and Pete's aunt are gone because of Fisk, and he's more than sure they'll do the same exact thing to them if they had the chance. Peter then replies with the fact that they can't be like them, for they're meant to be the heroes. They have to be stronger than them. Better. It's a must. Peter's met with silence until Harry responds by telling him that if he's ever put to the choice, and one of them is about to kill him, he will never hesitate. Peter stands there looking at Harry, and says, "Well, just so you know, you're still invited to Christmas." Harry apologizes and says he's got plans, but he'll make sure to get the kids something. Maybe something to do with spandex. Peter tells him he's the worst best friend a guy could have, and the 2 heroes walk off into the sunset after a long day at work. my god, scratch any concerns I might have had with this series because this issue was so good. Like seriously, this might be another perfect entry for Ultimate Spider-Man. I can't find a single fault within the story or artwork, and we've reached levels of peak that haven't been seen in a Spider-Man title for a very long time. It's all there, the action, the jokes, the humanity, and the setup for future just as thrilling stories. I couldn't even believe that the Iron Spider was in this. It's generally one of my favorite parts as well of Hickman, is just how he undermines and takes jabs at these widely known modern popular aspects of Spider-Man and the wider Marvel universe, whether it was in his Avengers run with the MCU roster getting absolutely destroyed in issue 1, or in issue 2 of USM, tail ending the issue with a jab at One More Day, and now you have it here, as Otto reveals this ultra high-tech suit that can do everything including save your aunt probably, and Spider-Man just says, "Nah, I'm good." I love these admittedly petty jabs, especially since we're in this current state where DC and Marvel actively hate their own characters. I'll never get over Matt Reeves changing the Penguin's name to OSCORP. What the f*** is even that?
You serious?
Now I have to say that the Black Cat, when announced, was one of my most anticipated foes for this series, and I thought he was incredible here. I don't know about you, but in my head he had that elegant, suave Frenchman voice that fit perfectly with Hickman's script. You could almost taste the italics in that man's voice. He's charming, elegant, but equally deadly, and by god, that fall must have hurt. Real shame though he didn't have Janice's plot armor. Now Mary Jane Watson Parker. Oh my god, after seeing how Nick Lowe and Zeb Wells absolutely killed her character, we desperately needed this. I f***ing love MJ in Ultimate Spider-Man. Ben and J. Jonah Jameson are one of my favorite dynamics within this series, hands down. Hickman once again nailed their interactions because he really makes you believe that they've known each other for decades, and I love the way that he's even planted the seeds for an anti-Spider-Man campaign within the issue as well. I gotta say, Hickman is doing a perfect job when it comes to Peter and Harry, because their dynamic is just, it's so ingrained in this point of the story, and it just works to perfection. You can really feel that they've been mates for a while now, and it's always great when you can see it and not just be told it. Hickman plays really well with their friendly dynamic, with the occasional very intense disagreement with heavy undertones, and it was flawlessly delivered within their final conversation of this issue once again. It cemented Peter's desire to never kill, but also highlighted Harry's desire to protect his friend, as well as cross the line if need be. I can absolutely see this causing some sort of friction between the two of them in the future. Maybe it could result in them having a fallout when/if Harry goes to the dark side, but as of now, I'm really enjoying them being friends, and I just hope that we can keep this going for a little bit more longer before maybe the eventual demise. Also, I just love how it was still just a very nice moment between friends. Peter telling Harry that he's still invited for Christmas was just the cherry on top. Hickman he really nailed it here. This series makes me so incredibly happy. I could read this in any mindset and I'd instantly have a smile on my face. This book is exactly why I read comics. I really don't think there's even a better feeling than that. Between Ben, JJJ, and MJ figuring out their business model, or Peter and Harry discussing their ideals on crime fighting, Hickman is creating human stories. Even if you strip away all the superhero aspects of this comic book, it would still be captivating dialogue. He's also laying the groundwork for these character dynamics to take multiple paths, and I love that. Will JJJ remain a more joyful version of himself, or will the Spider-Man stories overshadowing his investigative journalism be what pushes him to come full circle and hate Spider-Man? Can Harry continue staying a heroic goblin, or are we starting to see the cracks form on his path to villainy? Hickman has done such a great job that any direction he chooses will feel earned. co-C.E.O on this book may be the best writer-artist pairing Marvel currently has. Every panel looks cinematic, the character designs, Spider-Man's poses, the action sequence, it all just comes together so beautifully. Hell, even his use of shadowing during the scene with Otto was next level. And we mustn't forget Matt Wilson the colorist or Cory Petit the letterer, because their work within this title just adds such depth towards the comic book. Seriously, this group they have working on USM is nothing short of amazing. They all complement each other so well to the point where I couldn't imagine this series with anyone else working on it, for it simply wouldn't be the same. Now, Ultimate Spider-Man's first ever issue instantly proved that this new Ultimate Universe had a leg to stand on. It gave the other series a platform to explore familiar concepts in new ways that didn't feel like a cash grab gimmick, and nearly 10 months later it remains the universe's crown jewel and continues to impress and build upon its own success with each new issue. And I for one am extremely grateful for this masterpiece by Jonathan Hickman, Marco Cicchito, Matt Wilson, and Cory Petit. shit, I just remember we're gonna wait another month for the next issue while Amazing Spider-Man is less than 2 weeks away. Oh, for God's sake.